Chapter 2, Descriptive Statistics. So this is exploratory data analysis. And the point is just studying our sample to get information about our population. In this chapter, we're going to assume all our data sets are from samples. Often a very good way to describe data is to see it. So we're going to start with graphs. So first, our line graph. A line graph usually shows the change in the value of a characteristic over time. So only usually is used other ways, you'll see later on. So for example, here we have a graph showing the reported cases of tetanus in France. So we see this graph starts in 1945 and it goes through till sometime after the year 2000. And we can see that they're sort of up and down in the number of cases. But even though it's up and down, over time we see the cases have gone down till they're very low. In fact, they are below 100 by the year 2000. Bar charts, something we are all familiar with. There are three types of bar charts we're going to look at. Simple bar charts, component bar charts, and compound bar charts. For simple bar charts, only totals are shown. So for example, the weekly sales in units at a car dealership are shown in our table below. So in week 1, we see that 16 cars were sold. In week 2, 18 cars were sold, and so on. Okay, so the week and the number of cars sold. A simple bar chart showing this information would look like this. So on our x-axis we have the weeks, on our y-axis our sales, so our number of cars sold. To make this clearer, the graph, I've actually at the top of the bars put the values in, so we see week 1, 16 cars were sold, week 2, 18 cars. Those values aren't necessarily there when you first create the bar chart on Excel, which we'll be doing in a later video, but as you can see, I've added them in so that it's easier to read. Then we have our component bar chart. Here each bar is composed of segments, and the segments represent the portions that each component contributes to the whole. So continuing with our same example, let's suppose there are 3 salesmen and the individual sales are shown in the table below. So that table there, so we've got each week, and we see Bob in the first week sells 6 cars, Jean sells 3, Simpiwe sells 7. So we've got for each person how many cars they sell during the weeks. We put that into a component bar chart. It'll look something like that. Again, I've made this in Microsoft Excel and I've chosen this particular style because it looks nice on the rest of the slide. I've added in values onto the bars so that it can be easily read. Now those numbers won't necessarily always be there. Now in your head, just imagine they're not there. Okay, so if you look at Bob's portions, so that's blue portions, it looks like they're mostly level throughout the month. It does sort of have a dip in the second half, but with such small numbers, well, sort of looks level. And then Jean's portion of the bar, so the orange portions, we can definitely see there's an upwards trend. Very clearly there. And then Simpiwe's, that's all the grey at the top. We can see, oh, that looks like a nice upwards trend. But then if we look, that grey portion where it's touching the orange, that's being distorted because the orange part is getting larger and larger and larger. It has an upward trend. So we can see from the numbers very clearly that Simpiwe's actually looks, his sales look pretty steady. And if you pay attention to the bars, taking into account Jeans is going up, Simpiwe's you can realize, oh, maybe that is staying pretty steady. But there is another kind of bar chart, and that's going to be able to show us the individual trends. So our compound bar chart, here each component is represented as a sequence of bars, and then easily the comparisons can be seen. So here's our same table from the previous page. If we're doing this as a compound bar chart, it'll look something like this. So week 1, it's got 3 different bars. It's got a blue bar for Bob, a orange bar for Jean, and a grey bar for Simpiwe. Week 2 also has the same, and week 3 and week 4. Now we can compare all of these. Notice I haven't put values for each of the bars. You'll have to read across left direction to get to the y-axis. But the patterns start with Bob. So you can see that it stays sort of level through the month, but a little bit of a dip in the second half. Jeans, definitely an upward trend. Very, very clear there. But it was clear on the previous graph as well. And the biggest change that we're going to see is Simpiwe. Look at that pattern there. It looks like it maybe got a little dip in week 2, but otherwise Simpiwe's look like they're staying the same throughout the month. So whereas on the previous bar chart, it did look a bit like it was going upwards. Here you can see, no, it's keeping pretty much steady throughout this month. The Pareto chart. Now this is a chart that combines a bar graph and a line graph. So the bar graph is going to be drawn in descending size order. So the tallest bars on the left hand side, and then getting smaller and smaller and smaller, so that the smallest bar, the shortest one, is on the right hand side. And this is going to allow us to visually depict the situations that are more significant and those that are least significant. And our line graph, that's going to show us cumulative totals. So this isn't showing the change of the value of a characteristic over time. This is going to show cumulative totals. So for example, we're going to look at the types of complaints received by a company, given in a table here. So we see there are various different types of complaints, different categories, and we have 40% of the complaints are related to the category of documents, 35% of the complaints relate to the category product quality. If you notice all the way at the end there, we've got 5% related to something called other. So if it's not related to documents, product quality, packaging, delivery, so those are your other things there. If it's not one of those, it's classed in the other category. So your final product, once you've drawn your Pareto chart, once drawn, your Pareto chart should look like this. So your x-axis, you've got all your complaints, and on your y-axis, you have your percentages. So our bars are easy to draw. You have your tallest bar on the left, so your most common complaint, which is relating to documents, and then down to the shortest bar on the right hand side. 5% are attributed to other types of complaints, so ones that are not delivery, not packaging, not product quality, and not documents. Okay, and that line we have, that goes upwards, cumulative totals. So the way you would draw this and the interpretation, we'll start with the first one. Let's put a dot there. So it's in the center part of the documents bar at the top for neatness down the center. So you would interpret that as, in total, 40% of the complaints are due to the most common category, which is documents. Then the next point would be there in line with 75 on your y-axis. Okay, so you would find this by going 40% plus 35%, because the interpretation is In total, 75% of the complaints are due to the most common two categories. So due to documents and product quality. Our next dot, in line with our third bar, okay, and on the y-axis in line with 86, that would calculate, you've got your 40, your 35, and your 11. This would be, in total, 86% of complaints are due to the first three categories. So due to documents, product quality, and packaging. Our next dot, above delivery, so 95, where we would have calculated that. So all the previous percentages, 40 plus 35 plus 11 plus 9. And it means in total 95% of the complaints are due to those first four categories. So documents, product quality, packaging, and delivery. And then of course, very last dot up above other, in line with 100 on your y-axis. So what this means is 100% of the complaints are due to any of these, or all of these categories. So 100% due to either documents, product quality, packaging, delivery, or other. And that makes sense because 100% must be due to one of those things or another. Okay, now if you do this on Excel, it looks a bit different. But when we get to the Excel part, you'll see how different it looks. Oh, there you go. There's the calculation. All of the percentages together. So this is our Pareto chart. Let's see what kinds of information we could get. Now, just focusing on the bars for now. Notice these three on the end. So 11%, 9%, and 5%. So these three categories contribute very little to the overall percentage of complaints. So if the company wants to give out bonuses, perhaps maybe giving bonuses to people working in these departments would be good. And if you look at these two first categories, documents and product quality, in total they contribute 75% of the complaints, which is a very, very large percentage. So if the company wants to reduce the number of complaints, you can focus on just these two areas. Perhaps maybe look at the people working in these two different categories and see if they need training, or perhaps something like product quality made by machines, and then you have to go check, see if the machines are functioning correctly. Perhaps they just need to be updated. Okay, so focusing on just these two would reduce the number of complaints. And now an easy chart, a pie chart. So this is just a circle that's divided into slices, and these slices are representing different components. And the size of the slice shows how much the component contributes to the whole. So let's look at an example here where we're showing energy production by source. So we could see here 10% of the production comes from nuclear, 20% of the production comes from petro, 30% from gas, 31% from coal, and you get 9% from other. So this could be from hydroelectricity, something like that. Okay, so we're going to have a circle, and we're going to need to break it down into its different components. So we're going to have to get an angle associated with each of these different sources. So 10% of the production comes from the nuclear source. So the angle we'll calculate by saying a portion of 0.1 of our 360 degrees. It's 36 degrees. Then of course for the petro, 20% of the production comes from the petro source. So portion 0.2 of the 360 degrees. So times by 360 gives us 72 degrees are associated with petro and you do it with the gas, 30%. So portion 0.3 times 360 gives us 108 degrees. And then coal is 0.31, so 31% of the 360 degrees gives us 111.6 degrees. And then of course right at the end, the other 0.09 of the 360 degrees gives us the remaining 32.4 degrees. So then you can draw this, and that's my diagram, also made in Excel. And you can definitely see the two main ones here are gas and coal. Okay. When we want to use Excel to construct our graphs, we're going to use the same method each time. There are various little ways you can do it, little shortcuts to do this, or shortcuts to do that, but we're going to do the same thing step by step every time, just to get into the habit. So we will select our data with our headings, always first step. We're then going to choose the insert tab. So at the top of your screen, you'll see your insert tab. And then we're going to select our recommended charts. So you'll see our recommended charts. Okay, notice right next to recommended charts, there's a few other little graphs drawn right there. So that's one of the quick ways to get the charts. But we're going to each time go to recommended charts, and from that list there, we're going to choose our desired chart. Okay, so we're going to do that in a separate video, but those are basic steps we're going to be doing. Let's move on